Okay, next we're going to talk to Robert Moffitt. He's EVP and Director of Operations over at Legend Transportation. Talk a little bit about future proofing because NASA's here and maybe even get into driver demand. We'll see where the day takes us. Robert, thank you for joining us on the air today.
Morning.
Hey, we got to ask you. I mean, because the Suez Canal issue's going on, I don't think you would have seen any impacts yet. But do you have customers calling about it or people concerned about it? And when do you think when do you think the impacts of it may hit our shores, if at all?
Well, knowing that we're on the West Coast and there's a lot of things that are moving around because of Long Beach and stuff like that, I'm sure that there's a lot of impact that's going to happen because it's only been 5 days. It's kind of unique that we're going to figure out how we're going to get stuff to the ports now or how we're going to change a few things. It's going to be a very interesting concept of what we have to do. I know that there's a lot of propaganda out there. I would say that there are things that are going out there saying that it's going to crush the market, maybe, and we'll just have to see how that's going to come, how that's going to play out, and how quick we can fix it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when you see these backups that are going on, and we've been talking about future proofing your supply chains and how your supply chains pre-COVID, if they're the same after COVID, then they're wrong because things are changing. And now we're seeing yet another event that is happening that no one could see this coming, except for a lot of Monday morning armchair quarterbacks that are saying, "Well, duh, didn't you think this could possibly happen in the Suez?" But now we have another thing where you're backed up. How do you future proof against something like this?
That's a good question because until we can get everybody, especially with the stuff that's coming in and having to be offloaded and shipped where it needs to go to, I mean, it's a hard plan because at the end of the day, everybody's got capacity out there that says it's very tight. There's things that we want to get accomplished. There's places we want to get to, and there's customers that we have to serve. So there's a lot of different pieces that go along with this. A lot of it is, the import piece that allows us to, build on top of the positive things that are going on in trucking right now. But looking back at it, then you have to look at some of the shippers that are out there that might be manufacturers that might have immediate needs that, might be shifting some of the capacity from one to another while we're waiting for us to all figure out how we're going to get everything to market.
Yeah. Are there going to be drivers there in the future? Because that's going to be a big issue too. I mean, even if you look at recent stats, these aren't even projecting 10 years out. This is just the past 4 years of data that I'm looking at. Nearly 57% of all truck drivers are more than 45 years old. And when you compare that to other parts of logistics, for example, in warehouses, 62% of warehouse workers are younger than 45. Are we going to have a labor issue? Is this where automation takes over in 10 years? That component of future proofing, how do you see that playing out?
Well, 10 years for automation. Um, I think it's going to be about 10% in 10 years. But the automation may be that there still has to be a qualified person in the equipment that's running down the road. So I think that at the end of the day, yeah, there's going to be some automation, but it's about 10%. So we can talk about all the analytics that are out there today and how we're trying to get there, but I just don't think there's a true solution because it still takes the human touch. And then, with regards to some of the things that are out there and the things we want to get accomplished, it's how do we bridge that gap at the end of the day? Because I listened to Bob Costello a couple of weeks ago, and there's a lot of things that have happened in the past with regards to the clearinghouse and the things that are going on that really took some of the drivers off the road. So how do we bring that value back into trucking? How do we get the younger groups to get into to doing this industrial type of business? I served 22 years in the military, and at the end of the day, we always had people that were coming in and replacing, and we were growing the military. So how do we get the people to get into the industry that we have today of transportation? That we're running down the road. It's heavy duty equipment. It's it's a missile on the road. So how do we fix that over the next 10 years?
Yeah, and not only the difficult nature of over the road trucking, right? It can be a lonely thing. It can be a difficult thing in times of COVID. It can be a particularly dangerous thing and not so pleasant experience, but very gratifying to many anyways. But now you're also competing with stimulus checks and and local delivery with e-commerce exploding and really that local delivery, the delivery to the houses, the need for more and more drivers in that area, which are home every single night, that type of stuff. Warehousing jobs are in great demand and construction is through the roof. How do you compete and lure drivers from those different industries as well?
That's a good question too, because at the end of the day, if a guy can go home every night because he's going to put his 8 or 10 hours in a day and make a sustainable wage, it's hard to say, hey, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to put you on a truck and you're going to go out for, uh, we'll call it 7 days because it's 3 days out and 3 days back, and then I'm going to give you 2 days at home, or you're 34 and then start all over again. What kind of sell is that we can ensure that we have the OTR that's working? And the infrastructure that's out there right now, I mean, that's truly where we're at today. And knowing that we have a lot of stuff that's sitting in warehouses right now that aren't getting delivered because of the capacity constraints and the workforce that is out there. And I would say coming out of COVID, I would say that most people that probably were driving a truck probably rolled back into the warehouse because they knew they could have that same job, be a forklift driver, do certain automations in the warehouse, and some of those drivers are going to be uh, picked up from that point of view as far as the job skills that they have from driving a truck.
There's so many issues going on in the supply chain. I mean, Suez got all the headlines, but the much bigger issue here in the United States is what's going on at the ports in the West Coast with those 25 plus ships at anchor every day. We're seeing this, now we talk about Forward Air. They're going to have to be escalating driver pay. That's a headline on freightwaves.com. We saw a lot of that in 2018. What do you think are what are you seeing from your seat right now with all of these challenges? And what are your customers concerned about? And the capacity, the other issue.
Well, from the capacity constraint that we have with all of our customers is this: we do the best to accept as much freight as we can for our customers and perform on it, and perform to delivery. I mean, if we're going to make a commitment to a customer, picking that up and providing them with the trailer that lets them preload, which gives us the opportunity to work hours of service with our drivers, which in turn at the other end we hope that we can drop and basically pick up a empty van and then go to our next location and basically, provide good, solid freight that allows the drivers to be basically running down the road and not wasting their hours of service on their books. Plus, allows them to hopefully manage their time a little bit better, which would increase some of the true attributes of trying to get things done and making sure that we can continue to provide capacities in areas because we're pushing drivers back and forth into those segments. And I would say on top of that is, from our side, a lot of things that we're doing right now, we're truly engineering, from our side inside our TMS and things that we have in place and customers that we have. We're trying to look at ultimate pieces of where we're having a conversation that says, I'm going to take this customer and I'm going to go this direction. Who is on the other side that can get me back, that I can have a conversation with the whole group, corporate wise, and say, how can you guys help me alleviate some of the pieces like deadhead, making sure that we have that opportunity to provide services and make sure that we're alleviating any problems, because at the end of the day, with all those things that I'm talking about, it really drives driver retention, and that's probably the biggest thing that everybody's dealing with these days. Also,
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Before we let you go, I would be remiss not to ask, whose jersey is that behind you on the wall, the 23?
oh, that's just okay. So the building that we're in today, we had a good friend that helped us build it, and we are a sponsor of the Sacramento Kings, and so when we decided to put it on there. Here, I'll tilt it up and you'll see what it says. It actually says legend.
Oh. Now, why 23?
So it's actually us.
Oh, okay. Beautiful.
So it's it's a unique thing, and then we had it framed. I can say that I have something at home that that we're Arizona-based company, and I have a signed Wayne Gretzky jersey, but that's at my house because I don't want it to disappear.
Smart move. Actually, on Wednesday, we're talking to this guy who built an analytic device for baseball cards and all those things. I don't know if you've seen that market, but jersey collectibles and baseball cards and those things have just skyrocketed. They've gone up like Bitcoin. It's wild, Robert. But people who want to learn more about Legend, they want to check out what you folks are up to. Where should we send them to?
The website. It's a redesigned website. It's been up for about 2 weeks. It's www.newlegendinc.com. And, you can reach out to us personally, and the 800 number is 855-210-2300. We can help you. Let us know.
Thank you. Have a great week. We appreciate your time today.
Okay, appreciate it.